Well, today on Post-Op Reflections, we welcome Chris Cassidy, a retired U.S. Navy SEAL captain and NASA astronaut living right here in Keller, Texas. You're a BUD/S honor man in Class 192. I'm not going to talk about how I was in Class 182 because we understand what that means, but Chris did serve 10 years with the SEALs, including 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan just weeks after 9/11, and 2 more to the Mediterranean and Persian Gulf. Selected by NASA in 2004, he flew 3 missions to the International Space Station, spent 378 days in space. That's incredible. That's a long time, and completed 10 spacewalks totaling nearly 55 hours. He later served as chief of the Astronaut Office before retiring from the Navy and NASA in 2021. Now president, or as of 2 months ago, and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation, Arlington, Texas, Chris continues to honor America's warriors while openly exploring the real human cost of service. Welcome, Chris. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys. Great to be with you. I think first time we all 3 been together when it has been the Harvest Hoedown.
I think you're right. Yeah,
the old Hoedown for Heroes. That's coming up again.
For Heroes.
September 12th, which I always said is a tough one because, September 11th for our nation is it's basically the modern day Pearl Harbor Day, like December 7th is, right? For modern society of America. So having the Hoedown for Heroes one day after kind of puts it back to a lot of other national events like in New York City and stuff like that. It makes it a little difficult, but you're an OG of the Hoedown for Heroes for sure.
Yeah.
You've been their original. And
it's been fun to see it kind of grow into what it is today, from sort of a little more modest kind of horse farm setting to that space gets transformed into something unbelievable that night. It's really impressive to see what you guys do, so congrats.
That does make me a little sad though, because Hoedown should be a little dirty and muddy, and it's almost getting too refined and nice now.
They can put the mud out, but what I appreciate is the fact that it's closed in with air conditioning now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even September in Texas is 90 degrees. Yeah. It was miserable those first couple of years, heat-wise.
You get your mud experience on the 2-mile drive to the venue through that dirt. Yeah, then you get into the air conditioning.
Then you're like shocked, like how is this here after, in the middle of a ranch, a farm, and then it's like this huge gala.
Were you there the year that it rained so hard before they put the parking lot in? And everybody got stuck in the mud out there trying to get out and leave when it was over.
Oh, geez, I might have missed that one.
And so now they have a parking lot. Now they have a place for people to park. So you're right. Every year,
something gets better.
Absolutely.
That's what we call frogman weather.
Yeah.
Best time, best climate to operate in.
If it ain't raining, we ain't training.
That's right. We ain't training. We have to suffer for some reason to be successful.
Yeah.
Suffering equals success. But that's what I think is great having you here today, because I think for your service to your nation in the different seasons and phases of your life and that of others and us here today have been testament to all those that have come before us and that are continuing to serve today at home and abroad in making our country great and exceptional. Just the amount of people that are willing to contribute and sacrifice for the better good of others in our nation. And you have just an incredible story to tell, all the great things that you do. And not that I'm biased, because, I'm fond of other fellow SEALs who do great things. But even after, Chris, you were a SEAL, you decided to even do greater and bigger and other things that are incredible in their own right. So if you don't mind telling us about maybe starting back, in the day when you became a warrior.
Yeah. Before I dive into that, oftentimes I'm talking to veterans groups, and a common thing I say, which I really mean, military service, there's a beginning and end to everybody's journey, and it doesn't matter how far apart those 2 points in time are, 5 years to 30 years or beyond or whatever. But the lines that connect those 2 dots for each of us are commonly filled with friendships and experiences, and mostly friendships and experiences that are so rich, but not what people on the outside of service think. But your life is fulfilled with those friendships for the rest of your lives. And probably the same thing in the first responder, armed forces, police force community like you, Chief. The people that you went through, academy training with, or that you've done professional training along the way, that you have something common with those folks, and same with us in the military. And so when you meet people out and about, and in my role at the Medal of Honor Museum, met a lot of veterans in the North Texas area, and nationwide too, but focused in the North Texas area. there's just like a bond that exists. And you and I didn't know each other when we were doing our SEAL stuff, but we met here in Fort Worth, and that bond is really cool. And so that's what I love about the military journey. It gives you all these experiences and friendships that stay with you and translate to success outside of it. So I never knew any of that. I never knew about the value of military service. I didn't know about that. I didn't even know that there was different things you could do in the Navy when I was in high school. I just thought you go be in the Army, you go be in the Navy, and that was it. And it was really about looking to pay for education, pay for college, that kind of backdoored me into the Navy, and can go into that if you want. But it's an interesting story because it's how I'm here today. Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
Think about our environment today and the affordability issue or the economy of things, right? There's a lot of folks in the younger generation who are like, what would I do? Where do I go? And I always say too, like, serving your nation will never be a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It's a good jump starter to figuring out or creating a foundation or a launching pad for your further success in life. And you found that. So. Yeah,
absolutely. For me, it was, I kind of screwed up the application to the Naval Academy. I thought you just had to apply to the congressman's office, because that's what I read in the book that was in a book table just like this, the guidance counselor's office in my high school. Remember, before the internet, and they had these resources for you, and you flip through the books, and I found that about the Naval Academy, and I saw the cool pictures, and I was like, I could see myself there. And somewhere I read that you had to apply to the congressman's office, so I did that. And after the interview, the staffer said, okay, everything's squared away. We got you covered. We'll take care of it all. And so I thought I was done. And then that was the beginning of my senior year. And then the end of my senior year in high school, all the envelopes were coming in the mail from other schools, and everybody was finding out about where you got accepted or not. And I was from other places, but nothing from the Naval Academy. And then so finally I called the admissions office at the Naval Academy, and very nice woman said, oh yeah, no problem, I can help you out. And I told her my name, and I could hear the files moving on the side of the phone as she's looking through them. And she asked me, how do you spell it? What's your social security number? And she was looking through all of the drawers. And finally she said, you know what? You're not in our system at all. This is weird. And it turns out that I missed the key part. You have to apply to the school and the congressman's office. It's like two parallel things. And so I effectively hadn't applied. And this is the place I wanted to go. It was free to go if you could get in. And I really felt myself pulled in that direction. But here's why I always tell this story, because life, you never know where it's going to take you. My good buddy and I had planned to join his father on a business trip to Washington, D.C. We lived in Maine. It's like an 8-hour drive. And the next week was our spring vacation when we were going to do this trip. And so we did, except I took an afternoon and went over to Annapolis from D.C. It's like 30 minutes away, and went to the admissions office. And it was the same lady, and she remembered my story. And she's like, oh, good thing for you, Captain Malillo, a Marine Corps captain. He's the New England region guy. And he's in his office, and he'll help you out. You can just walk down the hall and go into his office, and he'll help you. So I turned the corner into his office, and I'd never seen a Marine before, but this was the poster child Marine. Like everything about him, haircut, fit, guns busting out of his sleeves, and perfect gig line and shoes and all this stuff. And I was pretty intimidated, but I was reluctant to say anything. But I remember thinking to myself, well, if you really want to go here, you got to tell this guy your story. So I tell him my story, very few minutes in his office, and he, not a lot of verbal communication, just kind of nodding and stuff. And at the end of it, he goes, okay, I'll see what I can do. And so I leave and I go back to my hometown, at least, and the whole time thinking, well, I did my job as best I could. I can sleep soundly at night. I tried, but I got to come up with another plan because I'm clearly not going there. Mm-hmm. And then a couple days later, I get a phone call from him at school, and he says, hey, Cassidy, it's Captain Malillo. I got good news. I can get you into Naval Academy prep school, but I need you to tell me on this phone call if you want it or not. And I didn't know what the prep school was, where it was, what it meant. But the reason I tell that story almost every time I talk is because if it wasn't for that guy giving a young person the gift of an opportunity, the three of us would have never met.
Yeah.
I would have never gone to Navy prep school, which is 1 year in Newport, Rhode Island. If you maintain certain grades, you automatically get accepted to the Naval Academy. Other service academies have a similar thing, but Navy prep is what I went. While I was at the Naval Academy, I saw my first Navy SEAL guy. I didn't even know what Navy SEALs were. In a small town in Maine, it's not like they're running around in my grocery store. So I'd never seen one, didn't know. I saw the trident on a guy's uniform and was like, oh, what is that guy? And so the two SEALs, there was a guy named Chief Black and Matt Hickey, Lieutenant Hickey, were on staff there and guided myself and my classmates that were interested. And then I found myself in the SEAL teams, and about 5 or 6 years into that journey, met Bill Shepard, who was the first Navy SEAL to become an astronaut. And he enlightened me, encouraged me to apply to become an astronaut. And then I got selected for that and had an awesome career, which we can talk about, at NASA, and then wrapped that up and came here to the Medal of Honor Museum and brought me to North Texas, with my family. And all of that because one guy gave me something that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. He didn't owe me anything. He didn't know who I was. I was just some young knucklehead that didn't do the process right and everybody else did. But because of him, it changed the direction of a young person's life. And that's how I kind of found myself in the military, and so thankful for Captain Melillo. A cool part too is my wife Peggy had heard me tell this story a whole bunch of times, and we were having a party before I left on my last space flight in 2020, and she kept asking me before the party, "What are you going to tell everybody at the party?" I'm like rolling my eyes, like, because I don't know. It's just our friends and family. I'm just going to say something silly and be done. And she's like, "No, you should tell the Captain Melillo story." What I didn't know is she had tracked him down.
No way.
Invited him. This is like 30 years later. Invited him to the party. And so as a good, dutiful husband, I'm saying the story. And she stopped me right in the punchline and said, "Hold on, Chris, stop." And pointed like to the one dude in the whole entire room that I didn't know. She's like, "Captain Melillo, will you please stand up?"
Wow.
So I finally got to shake his hand, give him a hug, and say thank you for the gift of a lifetime.
Wow,
that is awesome. Amazing. That story in itself, right there. There's so much.
There's so much to deal with in that story. It gives me chills every time thinking about it. And now, you know what? Now you as a former chief of police in a major city, you as a retired SEAL, myself as a retired, so we have the opportunity to be that guy for young people. And how important is that?
Huge. I call it the geometric progression of goodness in society.
Yeah.
And we're able to multiply by just doing these small, great things like Captain did, who, if you had the wrong person in the wrong place, you'd be like, it's easier to say no.
Yeah.
It's easier to say, nah, you didn't do it right, don't come back, or come back next year.
Yep.
But he took the time because his heart was in the right place, right person, right place. If people understood how much good you can do in every position you're in, how much more good can be done. So that in itself right there is almost miraculous nowadays.
Yeah.
And we need more people like that everywhere.
Yeah.
It's great.
And then while I'm on that same theme, it was reinforced to me later when I became an astronaut, and I'm not trying to jump ahead in our conversation, but the week I got selected, or the week I showed up at the Johnson Space Center for my first week on the job, learning the basics of how to log on the computer and where the office is and, where all the places you're supposed to check in for your HR checklist, we had a public conference announcing NASA's newest class of astronauts. And I had just come from the supply guy who, "You look like a 42 regular." He chucks my blue flight suit to me. It's the first time I ever had it on. I'm sitting on the stage and the press conference happens, and we come off the stage and this probably 12, 13-year-old boy comes running up to me. I could make it a beeline right for me. And he's like staring at me and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're a NASA astronaut." And it sounds funny, but in my head I said, "Dude, you know more about Pluto than I do. I don't even know where to park in this base." But when in that moment in time, I realized that kid didn't know that I didn't know where to park or didn't know how to get my badge and unlocked into my computer, and let alone what Pluto is. he saw me as everything represented in our nation's space program just by virtue of having that blue suit on. So that kind of goes back to exactly what you're talking about. If you can do so much good when in positions like that it's a great position, a great deal of responsibility to have, that you can affect so many people in a positive way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I mean, probably everybody out there wants to hear the question that no one wants to ask. So what was harder, being a Navy SEAL or an astronaut?
It's
you don't have to answer.
No, well, it's a good answer, because being a SEAL is a very physical, as you know. It's a good thing to go through training when you're in your 20s, and the instructors don't necessarily want you to become a SEAL. Maybe, and they go back to the team room and say, "Oh, I hope that guy makes it," but you don't know that.
Right.
They're just trying to get you to quit and push you to the edge. The hard part about being an astronaut is getting selected. Once you get selected, the instructors want you to be successful. So it's much more academic and cerebral, the training to become an astronaut, and it's way more, there's a mental component to not quitting, certainly a huge one, but your body has to be able to do it. So it's a lot of physical. So way harder physically to be a SEAL, and I found it more academically challenging to become an astronaut.
Yeah, two different things.
Two totally different things.
You have to be able to suffer physically.
You got to suffer. Yeah.
Suffering suffering on steroids. Like, you have to have a PhD in suffering to get through, I think, Buzz, or just be like me, too dumb to know the difference. You know what I mean, kind of a thing. But and then you went through Buzz in class 192.
192. Yeah.
Was it phenomenal? Was it what you wanted or thought it would be, or you didn't really know, or did they prep you?
I didn't really know. I did do a thing called mini buds the summer before I went. So at the Naval Academy, and I think RTC students the same. Yeah, I know RTC students the same thing. You can do 1 month of the summer between your junior and senior year, and you kind of get exposed to it. It's good for the prospective student to be assured that that's what you want to do, and it kind of gives, I think, the Navy a chance to go, maybe there's some evaluation that happens, and maybe we don't want this person here, or yes, we definitely want this person to come back. So all that kind of stuff happens in the background. So I a little teeny bit knew what I was about to get into, but you never know until you're actually doing it. And you remember Class Up, where you shave your heads like the weekend before. I forget exactly when, but pretty close to the weekend before. I remember looking around, everybody getting their head shaved, and being guilty of thinking, well, that guy doesn't look like he can endure the physical stuff. And there was this one big, giant former middle linebacker, and I was like, oh, he's going to make it for sure. You know what? You're wrong as soon as you try to start assessing people like that. And you know that, like, because the stuff that gets you through SEAL training, you can't see it. It's in a person's head and their gut. And that comes packaged in all shapes and sizes and skin tones and religion, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's who that person is. So that was a big lesson, that haircut day, because 3 days later, half the people weren't there, and I was wrong about every one of them.
Right. All your biasness is kind of wiped away.
Yeah, right.
I think that's where also what builds the camaraderie and the brotherhood and the fellowship within teams, because everybody's worn down to who you really are. Mm-hmm. You know, the physicality, they got it down to science, where they realize, like, whatever you think, how fast you can run, lift, strength, doesn't matter. Everybody's broken down to basically, do you have a heart? Where's your soul at? And is it in the right place? And now we're going to test that.
Yeah, and stripping the individual out of you and building the we back into the whole unit, and making sure that you're a good teammate. And because you don't get through any of that stuff, and that hard SEAL training, challenging times in life, health issues, tough relationship times.
Right.
You don't get through those times alone. You get through it with the people that you love, and they love you, and all that. Yeah.
You see that teamwork. So like when everybody's stripped down and suffering, what you see is those who are selfish, especially when you're hurting bad yourself. People that have any inclination of selfishness don't want to help other people, because they're just trying to get through themselves, and they're just trying to figure out how to get warm or get through. And when you see people that are other brothers, other teammates that are going through it just like you are, but they're willing to put down what they're doing to help you and assist and help other, that's the brotherhood. And that's where it starts, because selfishness. There's no room for selfishness in the team environment, and I'm sure that goes across board wherever you're, or whatever organization or team that you're in. Mm-hmm. And you see the best of the best, and then the worst of the worst kind of fade off somewhere else. It was always interesting how they figured that out and created the science behind all that. Because when you're going through it, I didn't know any of this stuff. Kind of like you, I just suffered.
Yeah.
And then I gained strength by other people not making. I was like, hey, that big old middle linebacker, he didn't make it, but my little short squad, I'm still here. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
It's interesting how it really is.
It really is interesting. And for me, I found also motivation in knowing that family members and Naval Academy classmates who knew I was going to BUD/S and they were off doing their own thing, like those people all knew, and they weren't thinking about me, but in my head, that's where I gained motivation from. I don't want to go back to a reunion or go back to my hometown and say, well, I got about a third of the way through and thought it wasn't for me. I didn't want to come back and have to say that I quit or didn't make it.
Wasn't an option.
Yeah. So I found motivation in not letting down other people that were hopeful in me.
How about like at the academy though? I know like the aviator program is huge as well. Weren't they pulling on you to go that way? Did you feel any type of?
No. They call it service selection at the academies. It was in your senior year when I was there. I think it's a little earlier now, but it's the same concept where there's a number of billets open in all the different warfare options, and you choose based on some prerequisites, but also your class rank and things. Yeah. And once that happens, you're pretty much on that track. Yeah. So there's no what happens to an officer who quits in BUD/S? You'll probably just go across the bay in San Diego to a ship, just kind of staying local and
surface warfare.
Surface warfare always in need of folks. So that's probably what happens there. And same thing with aviators. If aviators wash out in aviation training in Pensacola, then go to a ship or maybe some other support type thing like intelligence.
I'll tell you that Neil, like life aboard a ship is not good, or a submarine. It's really tough living. That in itself for me would be enough motivation to stay the course. Yeah. I mean, no, it's tough, especially lowly enlisted guys like me. Like you don't have a really good life.
And you can see those gray ships from across the bay when you're suffering in Coronado, right? So it's like, okay, I don't want to be on those things.
They make you stare across the bay when they like steel peel and stuff, like the steel peel, and then while you're suffering and shaking and they're doing bad things to you, they go tell you look over there and say, if you quit now, you get a warm blanket and jelly donut, and you could get over there in a nice warm bed. Just quit now. You're like, no, I don't want it. But it's interesting in itself. That's tough living though, and kudos to them, because that is a different type of lifestyle and suffering. To do the operations that they do is a sacrifice in itself, and God bless them for being able to do that. That's tough. That's a tough mission they have as well.
No doubt. Now, once you finish SEAL training, which I don't know if training ever really stops, what was next for you? I know you had some deployments, spent some time overseas.
Yeah.
What could you share about some of that?
Chris was the honor man too.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
That actually, of all the things in my life, and you can appreciate it, that's the thing that I'm most proud of.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And not because I'm naturally a good runner or swimmer, that helped, but there's a component of it that your classmates and the instructors believe in you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so for that, it's a tiny little plaque, very unassuming plaque in our house, but it's the one that's most important to me.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's big. Like it really is, because in your class of savages, who've all been suffering, fighting, working hard, getting after it for that period of time, and you get the nod to be like the number one. Like you're the pinnacle of all that effort, all that work, all that, the challenges. And then you have the support of your fellow brothers, your peers, your warriors, the classmates and the instructors. I mean, that's huge. And it's mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
Because it's academic and physicality and everything.
I don't think I've ever really told anybody this, but when you're a student at BUD/S, and this part, you rotate through midnight watch and quarterdeck watch and weekend watch, and I had nighttime weekend watch one time in the part of SEAL training, we called it fourth phase. I don't know if they still use that term, but before
now, basic orientation now.
Basic,
it was fourth phase. Yeah.
So before you technically start training, you're there and you're kind of just working out and getting your gear together, and you're there for a couple months. It was during that time, and I was walking around the grinder, which is this courtyard area where SEAL PT happens, and they had an honor man, all the honor man plaque, the plaque that listed all the class honor men on there. And there was a guy named Jeff Cassidy who was his class honor man about probably 20 classes before mine. I forget what year it was. And I remember I kind of touched his nameplate and goes, "All right, man, I won't let you down." I said that out loud because it was like 3 a.m. and I'm doing my rover watch as a duty guy. And I said, "All right, brother, I won't let you down." And lo and behold, my name's on that same plaque today.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That's
I don't think I've ever told anybody.
No, that is, you willed it to happen.
And my brother's name is Jeff Cassidy, of all things. And this guy, because in fact, and then a couple weeks later, I'm actually in training, and one of the instructors says, "Hey, Cassidy," and I'm doing push-ups and, all sandy. And he's like, "Do you have a brother named Jeff Cassidy?" And I said, "Yes, instructor, whatever." And then I'm realizing, like, no, this can't be right. And he knew the SEAL Jeff Cassidy, and my brother was half across the country doing something else. Anyways.
Well, you want to hear what the polar opposite of that is?
What's that?
It's and when I was in second phase, I had an instructor named McCarthy. He was a warrant officer. Do you remember Instructor McCarthy?
Oh.
Half-assed McCarthy?
Yeah. A warrant officer or a master chief?
He was a warrant officer. Well, at that time, I thought he was a warrant officer. And
Mike McCarthy?
Yeah.
Yeah, with like sandy grayish
Well, he
hair.
did, yeah.
He became the command master chief at SCV Team 2, my first.
Is that right?
Yeah, so he may have become later a warrant, but he was a master chief.
Is he the same one that got half of his butt fragged in Vietnam?
Oh, no, different guy.
Yeah, so I had
different
warrant
guy. Oh, different guy.
Well, they call him half-assed McCarthy because he got half his butt cheek blown apart with some fragmentation out in the Vietnam War. And I remember it was Instructor Blah or Instructor Trent, but we call him Blah, Blah, Blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
You ever heard of him?
I heard of him.
And he, I was the youngest guy in my class. I just turned 19, and he made me call McCarthy, Instructor McCarthy. So he's like out on the beach. So I go out on the beach. He had me doing headstands on the beach and kept telling me to open my mouth so he could kick sand in my mouth. And so he had me out there for about an hour and a half, just beating on me, one-on-one. And I realized, I'm probably not going to be the honor man after this. But you don't call a warrant officer, let alone one that's, got a Purple Heart from getting fragged in Vietnam, an instructor. Because instructors are like you're enlisted, E6 and below. And then your chief is your instructor, senior chief and master chief. And then, of course, as a warrant officer, you call him warrant officer, right? So they set me up for failure on that one. But it was like a loyalty check. Because it was Instructor Trent or blah, blah, blah. He was like, "Hey, Spencer, get over here, do this." And if I didn't do it, either way, I was going to lose.
Yeah, you're going to lose either way.
So I had to show some sort of loyalty. So there's little things like this going on. And anyways, the thing is, when you do open your mouth and you get sand kicked in your face, in your mouth, just don't breathe at the same time and you won't inhale it. That's what I learned on that. So that was a lesson learned. Don't breathe the sand.
You can always take a lesson away.
Anyways.
All right, so honor man, and that is, especially if it's coming from your peers and the ones who were leading the training, that's an extreme honor.
Yeah.
But after that, can you tell us a little bit about your service as a SEAL?
Yeah, after that, so I graduated from the academy in 93, became an astronaut in 2004. So what happened in those 11 years? So a year of it was buds and jump school and all the other little classes, and then my first couple years in the SEAL team, first 4 years actually, were driving underwater vehicles at SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team 2, Norfolk, Virginia. Really cool job. I loved it. Leaving a submarine in the middle of the night, driving away for hours and hours and hours, go do something sneaky and then come back. Big giant ocean, and somehow these two underwater vehicles link back up and you get back inside the submarine. I thought it was a cool mission. Little did I know how similar that was, the locking in and locking out part, to my future world as a spacewalker. Yeah. You're the same exact thing. You're in a capsule and you want to go outside and you got to put on special gear and you got to go through pressure differentials and open hatches and move fluids, water and air. So anyways, I love that job. I can go quick, but very formative in my journey as a SEAL and as a leader, just in seeing the examples in that. Your first couple platoons in the SEALs are very, very important, because you're surrounded by people that you end up embodying some component of their operator style, their leadership style, how they carry their radio. I mean, all the little things that you pick up along the way from watching seasoned, squared away people that you admire, and because how you do, another saying I learned in there is, how you do anything is how you do everything. Yeah. And just kind of picking up on the attention to detail of taking care of your gear, taking care of yourself, taking care of your team. Anyway, you learn all that stuff in the beginning, and I, just like every other operator whose journey took them through different things, that's where mine was. And then a couple years in graduate school in Boston and studying underwater vehicles also there, from a carryover from my time driving them. And then out.
If I can stop you for just 1 second.
Yeah.
Studying in Boston, where was that?
At MIT.
That's right, MIT. Yeah. So if it wasn't enough that he was a SEAL, he's an astronaut, he goes to grad school at MIT. That's impressive, sir. Very impressive.
You know what almost broke me, though, is we had 3 young kids when my youngest kid was born right when I was starting graduate school. So It was almost harder that first semester being a graduate student with 3 kids under 5 than it was going through SEAL training. I remember thinking some nights like, oh my God, can't I just be cold and wet and sandy? It's a lot easier.
It's so much easier.
It's simple.
It's simpler.
I don't think brushing over, though, the work you did in SDVs is, that's a hard job, because it's a continuation of suffering. And the way I see it from working in the squadrons is, you're doing 4+ hour dives in cold water.
Well, the longest I had was 8 hours, but they are average 6 hours.
In the dark.
And usually it's to go do some objective that doesn't take a whole lot of time. So I tell people, imagine that you drive in your car for 7 hours. You drive for 3.5 hours to go to 7-Eleven or Buc-ee's, and we're in Texas. So you drive for 3.5 hours to get to Buc-ee's, and then you turn around and drive back, and that's your mission. It's a lot of kind of being cold and miserable and just sitting in 40-degree water.
Wow.
Trying to not think about how, oh my God, I got 3 more hours left till I'm back to the submarine. So not all of them were boring like that, but they're very intricate missions, and every mission, you never know where it's going to go, right? The enemy gets a vote, the water gets a vote, the environment gets a vote. So that's what I actually loved about it. Wasn't necessarily what the thing was we were doing when we got to the objective area. Those were cool too, but the troubleshooting that you had to have, and the trust between my dive buddy was this guy named Travis McNeese. Travis and I knew what he was thinking without him saying a word, and he knew what I was thinking without saying a word. And just by we had communication, but oftentimes it'd be garbled, and the water would mess up the connection and you couldn't hear very well. So we had hand signals, and it was really cool to be trained and in sync like that with a fellow operator, to know that we're going to solve whatever thing gets thrown at us here, short of the prop not working, we haven't had plans for that.
Wow.
Let alone you had extreme danger. We've had loss of life just doing the training in that type of mission set, in the darkness, and probably your swim buddy is always, or dive buddy is always doing the jaws, just to mess with you, 3 hours in the dive and all that stuff.
My most enjoyable dive ever, though, my whole entire life, we were training in Puerto Rico, and it was daytime training, and we had advanced to nighttime training, and we were wrapped up. The submarines would come down from like Norfolk or Groton, Connecticut, and we would train for a month or something in Puerto Rico. And it was the end of it, and we just had to administratively get the SDV off the submarine onto shore. So Travis and I were driving it totally daytime, total admin dive, like it wasn't for tactical objectives or anything other than just safely get the gear to the shore. And so we're like a couple miles off the Vieques Island and a couple miles away from Puerto Rico. It's beautiful water. People pay money to dive down there. And all of a sudden, the sonar screen the SDV has, our SDV had the right seat, which I was the navigator, and the left seat was the pilot, and he only had a compass and depth gauge and stuff, and I only had the navigate. Now, the newer model, you can do both from both seats. Anyways, I digress. But my sonar screen was going crazy and chirping like nuts. And I know we're in the middle of the ocean. It can't be that we're about to hit a wall, because the signature of a brick wall is the same thing as what it was doing. And I cracked open the sliding door of the SDV where you can put your hand out and you feel the water going by. And there's a eyeball right there. Wow. And it was a dolphin. And it was chirping. And then I look up and there's a school of dolphins all around me. They were playing on the bow wake of the SDV. And I could touch his belly, and they're chirping, and their sonar chirping was causing our displays to go completely kerflooey. Wow. And I'm like, Travis, slow down, open the door. So we just kind of cruising along at 3 knots and 15 feet below the surface, could see the sky up through that 15 feet of water column, could see off forever deep, and this school, what do you call dolphins? A pod, I guess? Yeah. Pod of dolphins all around us, everywhere you looked. Wow. It was just the most fun time I've ever had underwater.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Where else can you get an opportunity for that?
Right. That's a rare one. That's a rare good one.
Never happened again, in all my dives in it. I'll never have it again now.
If you have 1 ounce of claustrophobia in you, whether anywhere, it's gone. I mean, there's no way you could do that mission. There's no way you could probably do astronaut, NASA type stuff. You cannot be worried about confined spaces and a lack of air.
Yeah.
Oh, you're done. The fear will probably push you through the roof, and you'll, just like in pole comp.
Yeah.
Same thing, right? Like they test you, see if you have any type of fear of drowning, and if there is, you're done.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I highly respect you for doing that SDV mission. So that's a tough one.
Yeah, it was
not easy.
I enjoyed it. Yeah. Then so grad school in Boston, MIT, finished up that, and then out to San Diego, where I went to SEAL Team 3 and was a platoon commander there from 2000 to 2002. So what happened in those years? 9/11. And everything in life really is timing and coincidences, and where you are at the place and time and the people around you, and you kind of can't plan some stuff, and that was the case. I just happened to be the platoon commander of a platoon that was going to deploy to the Middle East. So SEAL Team 3 was, maybe it's different now, Will, I don't remember. It was responsible for the Middle East. That was the SEAL team that deployed to that region. And so we knew we were deploying to that region in Thanksgiving of 2001. So the year and a half before that, we had done all of our individual training, all of our unit training, all of our training with other units and ships and aircraft squadrons. And that was, we just finished all the big exercise, whatever they call it. I forget, some kind of X.
Yeah.
Some kind of training exercise in August of 2001. And so we were getting ready to take some leave and downtime before deploying, and boom, 9/11 happened. So we went to work, packed our gear, and just kind of waited for the aircraft logistics problem to sort out. And a couple weeks later, we deployed to, where did we go first? Kuwait, I think, for a week or so, and then an island in Oman for a week or so, and then right into Kandahar, Afghanistan. So, yeah. That's where I spent the next 6 months or so. Yeah, crazy times. That could fill a whole hour all by itself just talking about that.
Yeah.
And then I went back again in 2003. Really stark difference in deployments between that 2001 deployment and 2003 deployment. In 2001, there was no military infrastructure. There was no big intel shop set up. So we would do a mission. We would learn from it. It would inform what tomorrow night would be. And then tomorrow night's mission would inform what the next night would be, and kind of pulling on our bootstraps by ourselves. And then went back in 2003, and by that time, much more established kind of normal military infrastructure. The base had real showers and toilets, and the chow hall existed. And with all that comes a more integrated operational picture with all the forces, and more briefings required to do a mission. Not that that's bad. It just was, it was bigger machine. It was really, really the wild, wild west when we first showed up in October of 01.
Yeah, very expeditionary, like basically you're self-supporting, you're figuring it out as you go.
I mean, we ate MREs for the first couple months, which is, in anymore, that's kind of rare. Like pretty much all the places we deploy as military guys, there's some kind of chow hall. The food night might not be like the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Fort Worth or whatever, but it's a chow hall, and you're not eating an MRE. It's hot food. And so it's pretty austere living if you're truly living off MREs 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like camping conditions.
It's camping conditions, and that's what it was. But really, really fun time. I mean, fun in a military guy sense. Loved ones, family members, pretty anxious times for those folks. But that's one thing I've learned in my operational life. It's way easier to be the person doing the mission than it is to be the loved one thinking about the person doing the mission.
Yeah, it really is.
And when I was an astronaut supporting another friend, for example, we always have an astronaut who's a family escort, and you're standing there at the launch pad with your buddy's spouse and their kids, and that was way scarier, thinking, okay, what am I going to do if something bad happens and I'm getting the family to where they need to be? And so it's way easier to be in the rocket. It's way easier to be in the helicopter. It's way easier to be the SWAT team leader than it is to be at home.
Because you're mission focused. You're focused on the job at hand. And then on the other side is the family and the loved ones who are worrying about the person focused on the mission, and they have a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah.
And while you're the operator, you're just focused on
what you need can't to think about it. You're just totally thinking about your job. Yeah. You think about it afterwards, you go, wow, that was a close one. But yeah.
How are you assigned as that? Because in the military, they call it like a KCO officer or something who would handle like combat casualty care or notifying of the family members if something happened. Is this via friendship, closeness as a teammate, or is it automatically assigned?
At NASA as an astronaut? Yeah. That's when you are assigned to a mission, you update your KCO and talk to that person, say, hey, will you be my family's KCO officer if something did happen? And then there's also that person may or may not be standing next to this husband or wife on launch day. It could be, but oftentimes it's different just based on other things, but yeah.
I like that better because initially throughout the military it was a strange unknown officer would come to the door.
Yeah.
Not like a friend, a teammate, someone part of the command, someone that the family already knows. So it wasn't like a stranger, and then comforting a family who just lost half of their heart. I think that's a better option.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. And that was one of those things you don't want to think about, the catastrophic potentialities, but everything is high risk.
Yeah.
It's high risk. And
then so somewhere in that time frame, I mentioned in the beginning of this, Bill Shepard. There's been three of us who were SEALs and an astronauts. Shep was the first one. He's about 20 years older than me. And then I was the second one, selected in 2004. At NASA, and Johnny Kim, who just came back from his first mission several months ago. So there's been three of us. So somewhere in that time frame, probably around 2000 maybe, is when I met Bill Shepard. And I remember thinking that you had to be a pilot to be an astronaut. And it kind of light bulb came on to me, like when I saw him and met him and talked to him, like, oh, you don't have to be a pilot. You can be like he was and I was. If he could get selected, maybe I could too. And I learned what the process is, what the timing is. NASA selects astronauts about every 4 years or so, and they open up the application, and you submit your application and hope for the best. And so I did that. I must have met Shep in '99 because while I met him, there was an open. The application was open for the class of 2000, and I applied real quick because it was about to close. And I didn't get selected. I didn't get an interview. I hadn't completed graduate school. I hadn't had experience in combat. Not that that's required, but I was just a more well-rounded applicant the second time. So in 2004 is when I got selected. Yeah.
Now, just so you know, Shepard was a SEAL Team 1 guy originally, so we take credit from him because SEAL Team 1's my alma mater. And it just so happens that Chris and then Kim, they're Team 3 guys. But it was actually a Team 1 guy, SEAL, who became an astronaut first.
Now, how many people apply to NASA's space program? Do you know? I mean, how many people actually want to be astronauts enough and believe they can enough to apply? And then how many do they choose every 4 years?
So when I applied in 2004, there were about 3,500 people that applied, and our class was 11 Americans. We had 3 Japanese people also in the class, but they were selected through Japan's process. So in that 3,500, we picked a class of 11. And that was kind of before prevalence of social media and really being the ability. I mean, the internet existed, but the ability to really broadcast it far and wide on the internet. When I was the chief astronaut in 2015, and we had an astronaut selection, and the public affairs people were dying to push it on every social media channel. And we were, on the astronaut side, we're like, please don't do that to us, because I guarantee you the people that really want to be astronauts already know that this is about to happen. But it's not a bad thing to get it broadcast far and wide, but the result of it was I'll never forget this number, 18,354 people submitted their applications that particular year, because it was so easy to apply, just button clicks and stuff. I mean, you had to fill out essays and whatnot, but by and large, pretty easy. There's no application fee, there's no nothing, and they could just push it on Instagram, Facebook, every possible thing. And what that meant to us in the astronaut office, we had to read all those.
Oh my goodness! Wow. I
mean, it's like if you're hiring somebody and you're filling one spot and you got 30 resumes to read, that's like, oh gosh, how am I going to pick? So it was all hands on deck. We divided up all those amongst the whole astronaut office, which was about 60 of us, and
that's still a lot.
It was a tremendous amount to read. I remember there was a 3-month period where I had to read 30 per night just to stay on glide slope to get it done. And that was hard. It was hard paced. Not woe is me or anything, because the result of that is we got a lot of people that want to be astronauts. There's great people to pick from.
Yeah.
But the challenge is it's all what's on paper, that first part. We can't bring to Houston all those people and meet them and talk to them and look them in the eyeball.
Yeah.
So that process gets you down to about 120, 150 or something like that we can actually invite to Houston for an interview and talk to them and meet them and see them in different situations. And that's kind of the final step. So yeah, it's quite a process.
It seems to me like a part of like the selection process for any very specialized or unique competitive program is having the candidates find you and figure it out instead of you finding them. And we learned that in the teams too, because before you had, what is the SEAL teams? What do they do? How do I get there? You had to kind of navigate. And that was a part of the initial unsaid selection process. And then us recruiting you, talking you into it, selling you. You're not necessarily getting, because I guarantee you probably the 3,500 candidates you had initially for those 11 spots, they probably all could have been great. They're probably all great people.
Yeah.
Right? They were probably all outstanding and, could have been, I mean, like Johnny Kim, he was isn't he a Harvard grad, doctor, MD, and then he's an astronaut. So SEAL, MD, and then astronaut. I mean, all outstanding overachievers, Chris. Mm-hmm. Probably all 3,500 were overachievers to some high degree. And I think a part of that selection is you finding and figuring it out too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So after SEALs, you move on over to the National Medal of Honor Museum, and I can only, and I don't know if there was
astronauts in between.
I'm sorry, astronaut.
Yeah.
My mistake, astronaut. And was there anything between your time at NASA and the National Medal of Honor Museum?
No, like Buc-ee's in Madisonville is the only thing between astronaut and the Medal of Honor Museum.
That had to be kind of a transition. I mean, you go from a SEAL and having these combat tours, you go to outer space, literally out of this world kind of stuff. And now you're working as a president and CEO of this amazing. And for anyone who's not been to the National Medal of Honor Museum, it is fantastic. The architecture is absolutely beautiful. It's very respectful, and it honors our nation's heroes, our National Medal of Honor recipients. And just being offered that had to be an honor for you as well. But actually being a combat veteran yourself, what was it like for you to be able to honor those heroes that way?
Well, pretty neat. I mean, neat doesn't even capture it. A special honor to be part of that, delivering that building to the country. And I didn't realize when I took the job what it means to be a fundraiser. They didn't hire me because I know how to manage construction. So thankfully we had great partners with that on the construction side. The design of the architect was already chosen. So I kind of walked into it not knowing what the job would be, other than, high level, kind of figuring out that, okay, we need to, because everybody loves to support the military, right? Mm-hmm. But then what does that mean? Everybody's got their own version of supporting the military, and there's lots of awesome causes out there. That's the other thing I realized in the journey, is that there's so many people doing great things. You guys are one of them. That there's a lot of places where people that want to give their philanthropic energy, whether it's money or time, to something, they can. And so being part of learning that and realizing that it's relationship building, it's building trust in the donor and the team around you to achieve that. And it kind of felt, once I realized all that, the job felt a little more comfortable to me, because at the beginning I was a little fish out of water, like, I don't know how to be a fundraiser. I don't know how to be a nonprofit leader. But when I kind of put it in my own head as, no, you're really just getting a team together, building the trust across the team, inside and out, and getting something done. And you just fill in the blank of getting something done with whatever it is. In that case, it happened to be building a museum. But a lot of learning. I didn't know what I didn't know when I started the job, and learned a lot as I went. And I think it's healthy also to be a new guy every now and then in whatever phase of life, because you can get complacent and comfortable in whatever you're doing. It sounds funny, but I was very comfortable being an astronaut. I knew how to do spacewalks. I knew I could walk into Mission Control and listen to a spacewalk happening and go, there's going to be an issue in 30 minutes from now. Sure enough, there would be, right? Like, you just kind of get comfortable with that. And then taking it out and inserting into some new environment, it just keeps you sharp. And
student of life.
Yeah.
Always ready to learn. Big eyes, big ears, like a new guy in the teams. Like, you're here to learn your first 2 platoons.
2 ears and a mouth for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I am very fascinated still with the whole astronaut side.
Oh, absolutely.
Because to me, it's just like everybody, and I think every kid, like, just is at awe of, that's that next frontier that is, I don't understand how our Earth is floating in nothingness in a universe of endlessness, and how everything works and whatnot, and seeing everything above us, especially in a dark night with all the stars and whatnot. It's almost something of dreams, of an imagination, of wonder. And then you watch Garden of Galaxies or Star Wars, something like, it even increases your idea of what everything could be and your fascination of it. But you being up there all your time as an astronaut for, if you had it, probably all your days, over a year-ish, multiple, 50 spacewalks?
No. 10 spacewalks.
10 spacewalks?
55 hours or
55 hours walk.
Yeah.
What is that like? What is one spacewalk like? Starting with the preparation, like, how is this planned out? How is it executed? Like, it's probably so much.
I could talk for hours about this subject, because it's my most favorite thing as an astronaut. And I was kind of good at it. And part of that is just body shape. The longer your arms are, the more you fill out the suit. If you have shorter arms or narrower chest, it's hard to, like, sometimes people's body shape, because the suit doesn't allow you to move freely.
They don't change to custom make your suits?
There's only there's 3 sizes of upper torso, and the upper torso is a hard fiberglass shell, and it comes in small, medium, and large. And actually, it's medium, large, and extra large, but that's besides the point. It's just 3 sizes. And And so what really drives that is there's a box right here in the middle that has all your displays and controls, and it can't get any smaller. So the narrowest on the smallest size is that's where the shoulder bearings have to be. And so the shoulder bearings kind of drive how you can move your arms. And so folks with a less broader chest have a difficult time moving their arms in such a way. And I've seen some people can't pass a tool from one hand to the other. They have to put the tool onto a bar and then grab it with this hand. So that's very cumbersome. And just by genetics, I fit nicely into the suit, and I'm kind of a garage fix-it kind of guy. And so spacewalkers are essentially high altitude mechanics and electricians and plumbers.
Yeah.
And that stuff is right in my wheelhouse. So it's kind of natural to it. So to your question, Will, what's it like? So we train in a giant pool in Houston for a spacewalk. It's called Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. How'd they pick that name? If you fill up a balloon and put it in a pool, it floats, right? So they put weight all around our suit and our legs, such that we exactly float in the water column, and then that mimics zero gravity pretty well. And so you get very comfortable in the pool training for a spacewalk. But in the pool, you always know where the pool floor is. You can look down and see cement, and you look up and you see the bubbles going up there, and the lights are generally always on. On a real spacewalk, you look down and there's Earth, or if it's nighttime, you look down, there's nothing. You look up, there's nothing. It can be very disorienting. There's no bubbles telling you which way is up, and so it's very different. But it's the most satisfying thing we do, because you're out there to fix something or install some new capability. And a spacewalk is about, and I'm kind of ping-ponging all over the place here, but a spacewalk is about 6.5, 7 hours long. And it's planned with all these activities that are sequenced and run through the kind of the paces in the pool, and then the team on the ground packages it into a workflow that makes sense, and then they send it up to the guys and gals on the space station. We'll get it for a couple of days and study it and look through it on the computer. Okay, I'm going to go here and here and here. Okay, I get what they're doing. We ask questions with the engineers, and then it's time to execute. And you go outside, and I'll talk about that in a second.
So you kind of do a little deliberate planning process of how you might do it and connect it all before.
Oh, not a little deliberate.
A lot of
like
deliberate.
Super hyper anal,
Deep
dive deliberate. Yeah, to the point of, okay, you're going to leave. You're going to hit this hook here. There's a handrail that will be by your right hand, because you've never, and in most people's cases, they've never been to that work, and a lot of times it's their first spacewalk ever.
Yeah.
And they've never been outside. And certainly probably never been to that particular work site before. I mean, I've done 10 of them, so I've pretty much been all over the outside of the space station. I know the pitfalls in the certain areas. But when you're first starting out, you kind of really need help guiding you through what those pitfalls are. And so the voice in mission control is called the Capcom. That person's walking you through all the steps and telling you what to do. And the engineers need certain verifications, if it's torque to the right torque, or if you're not putting too much bend in a cable, and all these details. But really, really cool work. The spacesuit itself is like a one-person spaceship. And inside it, the spacesuit regulates the pressure to 4.5 pounds of pressure above whatever the outside pressure is. So if you put a spacesuit on in this room right here, we're at sea level, basically.
Yeah.
And so you put the suit on, and the suit would pressurize inside. So my body inside the suit would see 4.5 pounds of pressure greater than sea level, which is like a 10-foot, 15-foot pool. You're a little deeper than you are. But it flips. When you go into the vacuum of space, the pressure outside is zero. So the pressure that your body sees inside the suit is just 4.5 pounds of absolute pressure, which equates to an altitude of about Mount Everest. So we're at altitude, inside our body is at the altitude of Mount Everest, more or less. And if you've ever watched mountain climbers, all those guys, most of them breathe pure oxygen. I mean, it's possible to live without it, but Everybody breathes pure oxygen, and there's a whole acclimatization process that needs to happen to get to that altitude. And so putting on the spacesuit, we start the night before where we decrease the pressure. We sleep at a decreased pressure to kind of help with the acclimatization. And then the morning of, we put the suit on right away. There's a 4-hour period of exercise, pre-breathe they call it, where you have to exercise a little bit in the suit and denitrogenate your body. All that said, you wake up, you eat, you go to the bathroom, put the suit on. You're not going outside till about lunchtime. And then it's 6.5 hours, 7 hours of a spacewalk, and you come back in. It's about 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And so you're long, hard day. You're working your butt off. That you have 32 ounces of water inside the suit with you, no food. You can pee all you want. You got a diaper on, but you're not going number 2. You better not. Nobody I know has ever gone number 2 in the spacesuit. Yeah, it wouldn't be pleasant. But so it's a long, hard day. I'm joking a little bit about the bathroom stuff, but it's a long, hard day. And but it's so rewarding, so satisfying, kind of scary, but just super cool to be out there.
You ever feel hypoxic or get cold? Are those any issues, or they keep it pretty climate controlled and the oxygen?
Well, good question about the temperature. So if you are out in space with there's a vacuum around you. If you're in the sun, every part of you that's exposed, everything that's exposed to the sun is about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So the side of me that's looking at the sun, 250 degrees Fahrenheit. The back side of me that is not in the sun or underneath this table is about minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So
I didn't know that. That is
extreme
insane.
Temperature changes. And there's our gloves, for example, we have little heaters that wrap around your fingers. So we do have glove heaters, and they help because you can get cold on your toes and your fingers pretty easily particularly if you're having to move hunks of metal that have been sitting in the shade for months or years, and so the piece of metal that you're grabbing is minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit. It's really cold, and you pick that up, and the thing we put our feet in to stay fixed in one spot, because if you don't have anything to fix you in one spot, you're constantly moving, and it's impossible to do anything, especially fine-tuning. So we put our feet into these metal plates, and those things are really cold usually because they've been not in the sun. And so that's very common too. Your feet can get super cold, like out on a mountain slope or something. So, but generally the suit does a good job of keeping your body warm. As long as you're working a little bit, you're not going to get too cold.
I don't think we have an appreciation here down on Earth on how our atmosphere and the ozone layer and everything else stops the sun from burning us up like a bunch of fried eggs.
And at nighttime, you can freeze. Oh, I'm so hot. You kick the covers off. Well, you wouldn't be able to do that.
That blows my mind.
And there's got to be something in this suit to protect you from the radiation from the sun.
Well, no, actually, we wear radiation dosimeters, they're called, on our bodies when outside and when we're inside, and so they just kind of monitor that. All astronauts are regulated by lifetime radiation exposure, and there's a lab that predicts flares of the sun, and so we don't do spacewalks in certain days or weeks because they're known to be high radiation periods of time. Okay. But you are a little bit higher radiation when you're outside versus inside. The metal of the hull of the vehicle does some degree of protection, but not a whole lot. The only thing you wear inside, your naked body, then you do wear a diaper, then you pull regular long underwear that you wear when you go on a ski trip, and then on top of that, this special garment called NASA has weird acronyms for everything, an LCVG, liquid cooling ventilation garment, and there's water tubes woven all into this fabric, and so we plug that in with this umbilical at our belly, and it circulates cold water throughout. Otherwise, you'd get really hot inside a Gore-Tex jacket and working out.
Yeah. So
that water takes the heat of your body and takes it away.
It's like the engine's cooling.
Yeah, it keeps you cool. Keeps you cool. Yeah. But every now and then, I would, many times, I'd turn that thing totally off because you're cold, and then just your body heats up a little bit inside the suit. Yeah.
That is pretty incredible. So I don't know if you could disclose this, but there's a lot of talk about like space garbage from all the different satellites and stuff that have gone up and down over the years and whatnot. Have you had to fix any damage from particles up there in space or whatnot? Not just that, but just other particles on the space station?
So the space station's getting hit all the time by tiny little particles. Every time I've been outside on a spacewalk, you go along and in the metal, you see a little divot. In my mind, the best way to describe it is like a Bic pen or something, and you jab it into a 2x4. You're not going to poke a hole in the 2x4, but if you ran your finger over it or just look, you can tell that the rest of the 2x4 is smooth and flat, and then there's a bump in there. And there's pockmarks like that all around the space station where it's getting hit. Never yet with enough energy to poke a hole through it. We do have contingency plans. It's very modular, the space station, on purpose. So if there's one section gets a leak, you can close the hatch and isolate it.
Just like a ship.
Just like a ship. Set, what do they call it? Set dog zebra or something? Yeah, so you isolate, close all the hatches. And
Titanic didn't have that properly.
Yeah, they didn't have that figured out yet.
They needed that.
So yeah, it's getting hit. Just sometime, somewhere out there, it's only a matter of time. Everything is statistics before some particle has enough momentum and energy to poke a hole. And while you're outside on a spacewalk, that's actually your most vulnerable thing because you don't have, it's not body armor. It's just basically a Gore-Tex jacket puffed up. And so if you,
what happens
if you got hit, you'd be leaking and you'd have a gunshot wound. So the suit, there's an emergency setting where it can basically feed a leak about the size of a number 2 pencil, 1/4 inch hole.
Like a fix-a-flat kind of a thing?
It just has a backup air bottle that can fill. I think the rating is 30 minutes of a 1/4 inch hole, and that is theory enough for you to get back to the airlock.
Okay.
And get yourself safe. But if it's bigger than a 1/4 inch hole, you mean you're dead. Yeah. So yeah, you getting hit by something is probably one of the riskier things on a spacewalk.
Talking about risky, I can't remember the question exactly. I was at the National Medal of Honor Museum for an event where you were speaking. It's been several months back now. And someone asked you either what is the scariest thing you've done or the most exciting thing you've done. And if I remember correctly, you talked about a spacewalk, the first step out.
Yeah.
How? Because like you said, sometimes there's nothing. It's just like pitch black. And that could be a terrifying feeling, I would think.
Yeah, it really is. And the hatch and the airlock is in the floor, basically. So you open it, you're looking right down at Earth. And I've often thought to myself, the engineer that designed this really had no knew they were never going to go out and use it, because put it in the side or the ceiling or something. It wouldn't be so scary to look. But no, you exit out and your eyes and your brain are still the 40, 50-year-old person that has been on Earth all the time. So visually you see this thing going by in the clouds, whizzing by, and you can get frozen for a second thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fall. And the more experience you have, the more confident you are, just like with anything. But that first time, it's like pretty intimidating. Like, oh my gosh, it's a long freaking way down there. Yeah. And you're gripping as hard as you can, and you're like checking your hooks 50,000 times. Okay, I'm safe. I'm not going. All right, I'm good. But eventually you got to move, and you got to unhook your hooks and start moving.
Yeah.
So Fort Benning, Georgia, Airborne School, first jump out the door. Similar, different, scary?
It's a little more scary for a couple reasons. One, Fort Benning, there's like 15 dope on the ropes before you, and okay, they're all going, and all these instructors in Georgia here in Fort Benning, they've all done it. So okay, how bad can it be? It's scary, and that first step is crazy, but there's no other people doing it on. It's just you, and that's what I felt. And it was the altitude is higher and more noticeable. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, I found it scarier than that first jump in Fort Benning.
When you talk about this day, you can still feel the experience, right? Yeah. You're still like, I remember exactly what I felt like taking that step.
Wow. And then that remember that first jolt, like, okay, I got a parachute.
Yeah, my first jump in Fort Benning was a night jump. I just kept my eyes closed until my chute opened up. Mostly because I was scared of all the other dope ropers around me, because that's what's scary. Mass jump outs. Everybody's like this
all
close
around
to colliding.
Yeah.
And they don't have really much, they can't really steer really good in those rounds.
Yeah.
Unlike when you go through free fall, where you actually have control. You could go left, go right, round. You're just, whatever happens is going to happen.
Yeah.
That's scary to me. What I can't control has always been the scariest part for me on everything.
Yeah, right.
I felt like if I had a little bit of control, then at least I could determine my fate.
Yeah.
But some things, it's just, you got to give it all up to God, I guess. Wow, that is pretty cool.
Yep.
But is there any other spacewalk stories that is just unbelievable? Or
well, there's several of them. The most probably intriguing one, in 2013, I did a spacewalk with an Italian buddy, Italian crewmate, and his spacesuit malfunctioned such that water was coming into his helmet. So there's cooling water in the backpack, and there's check valves and plumbing that is designed such that the cooling water stays where on the side it's supposed to be, and the oxygen that comes into your helmet stays on the side where it's supposed to be. But there's one spinning pump, one shaft that drives the air pump and the air fan and the water pump. So somewhere in close proximity, the airlines and the water lines are close to each other, and it's designed with check valves that they never cross. Well, we didn't know it at NASA, but in zero gravity, water can behave differently, and it never was tested in such a way until this particular spacewalk. The water lines, I can talk about it later, but the water lines were clogged up, and so the water had to go somewhere, and it went back upstream to 2 check valves and crossed over into his oxygen line. None of that was known at the time. When we were doing the spacewalk actually, while it's happening, he's getting water droplets into his helmet. And we did 2 spacewalks within a week, and we saw a tiny bit of evidence of water at the end of the spacewalk last week, but we all just kind of thought, it must be sweat, or there's the Camelback that we have. Right. It must have been water.
Just discounting it.
Just kind of, there's only a way it could be, is those things that are explainable.
Yeah.
And then the next week, now we're doing the spacewalk. About 45 minutes into it, he says, "Hey, you guys remember that water we had last week at the end? Well, I'm feeling it again, and I can see little balls flying around inside my helmet." And when I got up to him, I was about this far away from EDU, and I could see like this half of a softball size thing of water just jiggling on top of his head.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of water. And but it was daytime. So you're going around the world every 90 minutes. So 45 minutes you're in the day, and 45 minutes you're at night. When I got to him, it was daytime. So I could see, and he was static. He wasn't moving. The water wasn't moving. And we could just see little balls floating around. And he grabbed one with his mouth, and he goes, "Oh, wow, it's super cold. And it tastes really bad." And when he said that, the ground team in Houston and me and him too, we all kind of thought at the same time, like, well, that's not so good, because inside a spacesuit, the only way you can have water is urine, but we wear diapers, the drink bag, which is literally on your chest. So that's not going to be super cold. It's going to be whatever temperature your body is. And then there's sweat, but again, not super cold. It's whatever your body is. Or the technical water in the backpack, and that is cold by design. How could that be? And so we all kind of came to our own conclusion right around the same time, like, this probably isn't so good. We should be done. And so they directed Luca to go back to the airlock. And I remember, and this is where SEAL training came in for me, I remember seeing him disappear. And right when he started to go back to the airlock, the sun set, and it became pitch black. And I remember seeing his silhouette disappear around the backside of the space station to go the 50 yards back to the airlock. And I had some cleanup to do that was essential to do before we left. Otherwise, rotating machinery and things couldn't be switched back on. So we had to stabilize that work area before I could go. And the other important thing is safety tethers, which are like the ropes of a rock climber, are routed for each of us separately, because ropes always tangle, space tethers always tangle. So to prevent them from tangling and being a nest, we route them through different paths to get to the same spot. So his path took him on the back side of the space station. My path was on the front side of the space station. So if we were going to go back together, one of us had to unhook from our safety line and hook to the other guy's safety line and leave the other one stretched out. And I remember thinking, well, if I did that, if I stop him and I go on his tether, mine's stretched out across. I remember thinking, well, I could unhook it and throw it because it has like a tiny little retraction force that reels itself back in. But I remember thinking the engineers wouldn't like that because it'd be hitting stuff and it's not worth it. So I didn't say anything. But at the moment, I remember thinking, God, the reason I had a swim buddy in Buds, the reason I had a swim buddy in the SCV, the reason I have a swim buddy out here on a spacewalk is to be together right now when we need each other. And I should tell him to stop and we'll just figure out this tethers. And I was all in my head and I was like, he's already probably 10 yards back. Let's just let him go. And so I didn't say anything. Little did I know, and Luca had amazing awareness during all this. As soon as he started to move, now that movement went into the water and the water whished around and was in his eyes and his ear communication cups and his microphone booms were like, it'd get covered with water. Yeah. So he couldn't see, he couldn't hear, he couldn't talk.
Wow.
And he's by himself on the backside of the space station, pitch dark at night, 40 yards from the airlock. And I was working and talking. Hey, Luke, how's it going? Nothing heard. Hey, Luke, I'll be done in here in 2-3 minutes. I'll head back. Nothing heard. Finally, hear some intermittent, really distant kind of communication. I thought, oh, geez, something's gone bad from when we left each other. Yeah. And so I hustled up, cleaned up, and then went back. And I remember thinking, well, if he's not there when I get there, I'll just trace his tether up the other side and I'll bump into him. So I'll find him. And I also remember thinking, what do I got to do to not make this worse? That's exactly what went in my head. What do my hands need to do in the next minute and a half to not screw this up worse than it is? And this is where training, and kind of reinforced from my time in the SEAL teams and training as a spacewalker at NASA, repetitive training gets you so familiar with things that you sometimes don't even think about the complicated scenario that half your brain is processing, but it's happening in the background without you cognitively having to process it. And Luca had made it back to the airlock right when I was getting there. I remember seeing his feet, and the normal plan, there's all these little details that are interesting, but the airlock is not much bigger than the circle of this table, and big enough for one guy's head is in, one guy's head is out. The inboard person does the switches and valves, and the outboard person's head closes and opens the hatch. And by the plan, I was supposed to go in first and do the switches, and he was supposed to go in second and close the hatch. But he figured it out, and I did at the same time as me, like, Luca, just go in, go in, go in. He couldn't hear me, but he said, okay, I just need to get in. And then as I was getting close, I remember pushing him around and kind of not being annoyed with him, but like, get your damn feet out of my face. Because I remember thinking the only thing that matters here is closing this hatch. To some degree, he doesn't even matter right now, because if we don't get this hatch closed, we can't open the valve and start moving air. If we can't get air pressure, we can't take the helmet off, his helmet off. If we can't get his helmet off, he's going to drown. So if you back that whole chain up, there's nothing more important in the entire universe in this moment in time is successfully closing this hatch. So I remember moving his feet, getting his feet all over and closing that hatch and sealing it up and then moving the valve. And there's a whole bunch of steps in between there that normally the people in mission control are reading this very specific itemized checklist of, did you do this? Did you open this valve? Did you change this? Did you bring in the bags? Did you bring in the safety tethers? All these things. But really what I'm talking about in training is all that stuff happened. I don't remember doing it. Ground never told me. But that's where training is so important, that fundamental baseline training that you just know you're going to do. Right, you probably don't even know that you pressure checked your weapon or whatever. It's on safe. I know it's on safe. My weapon is safe. And
you got that good muscle memory
you just
built in.
Did it.
Good repetition.
You probably don't even remember making sure your weapon is safe.
Right.
But it is. And so same kind of thing. We got the hatch, and I remember staring at that gauge, waiting for it to move. It seemed like forever, and then all of a sudden, it started to move. And like, okay, we got the hatch closed, and we got in. We got his helmet off in time, and everything was fine. But it was a pretty sketchy 45 minutes getting back in.
Did he panic at all? Was he like,
no,
I'm about to drown? This is
he was amazing. He was amazing. When he couldn't tell what direction to go because no senses, pitch dark. And he just kind of settled down. He realized that the tether has like that 3-pound pull that I mentioned. So he'd kind of settle in. He'd feel the pull, and he'd stick his hand in that direction and grab onto something. And then he'd feel the pull, stick his hand in that direction and grab onto something. And he did that for 15 minutes, getting himself back to the airlock without eyesight.
Stay calm.
Yeah, very, very calm. Italian fighter pilot. He's the real deal. Yeah.
Wow, that is a pretty wild story. Could you imagine drowning in space?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, and actually, Disney Channel did a documentary on several things, and that was the opening scene of the documentary, Among the Stars, and it goes into deep dives about the whole thing. It's pretty interesting. What we learned from it, the big we, NASA, is that we thought we were purifying the water in the spacesuit after every use. Because imagine you use your garden hose once, and then you cap it off and you stick it in your garage for 6 months, and you bring it out again and you never drained it, you never flushed it. You wouldn't want to drink that water, right? It's all gross and nasty. Well, we were flushing the spacesuit, which would get used about once every 4 months or so, with iodine in this process. But it turns out the way we were doing it wasn't flushing every tube. There's lots of tubes in there. And so some of the places had water that just sat stagnant. And that's what, this is my words, not NASA, gunky stuff grew in the water and blocked the outlet of the pump. So the outlet of the pump was closed. So the water has to go somewhere, and it went to the path where it could finally get out, and that was into the oxygen line. So we had never had procedures for water in the helmet, and it was a big learning curve. And the bottom line is, the takeaway for me when I talk about this in public speaking and things is, when was the system talking to us that something was wrong? Last week there was unexplained water in the thing, but we all just kind of explained it away, and stuff that our brains could make use of. I left out some details when I told you the story, but during the early onset of the spacewalk in question, a sensor gave a weird indication, a false alarm, and then there was one other thing that Luca mentioned in right before it really got bad, that again, in and of itself was just kind of an interesting but not important fact. But you stack all those things, the system was trying to bark at us that something wasn't right multiple times, but it's so easy for us to have bias where you just go, let's just keep going. We're operators. We're going to figure it out. So at some point you got to process all those and say, wait a minute, we're being told something, and we need to pause.
Take a step back and get it all in totality. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. You guys survived that, or he did for sure.
He did,
helped him. But that's a team effort. That's why I think everything goes well when you work as a team. If he was there by himself, or maybe it flooded rapidly, like maybe too quick, it didn't have like a little smaller leak, maybe it could have went the other way.
Really
quick.
Lots of things could have been different.
Unbelievable.
Well, what gets me is that both of you were able to stay so calm. And like, your thought is, how can I not make this worse?
How can I not make this worse?
How can I not make this worse? But you go to work, both of you.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't see, he couldn't speak to anybody because of the communications, he couldn't hear, but he figures out a way to get back.
Yeah.
You figure out a way to do what you've got to do, finish up so you can get back. But even then, the 2-man operation is now a 1-man operation because he can't really help you get in, close the hatch, and do everything. But you figure it out.
Yeah.
And that, to me, just the fact, I don't know if it's just your nature if it was part of your military training, your SEAL training, it was training at NASA, but being able to remain calm in situations like that is that what I think saved the both of you. And kudos to both of you for not freaking out. I think a lot of people, probably myself included, would have straight freaked out in a situation like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it all falls back to training, right? If we hadn't had that baseline training, and if I hadn't have done, I don't know, 200 airlock ingresses in the pool prior, I would have been just overwhelmed with just getting us in normally. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's
so training. You have to be pressure tested in training.
Yeah.
That way you're calm in the real world scenario when it actually happens. Well,
let me ask you this. So you talk about somebody that helped you out when you were young. And if not for that person, you wouldn't be where you are today. Somebody gave you a chance. So I look back at your life, absolutely incredible what you've been able to do. I know you're a very humble guy. You're not one to brag about yourself or seek accolades. I hope you are able to look back and say, wow, it's been an awesome ride. God's been good to me. I've been blessed. Obviously, you've worked your butt off for everything that you have achieved. It's not like anything was handed to you. But you take that time, in the Naval Academy, at MIT, as a SEAL, as an astronaut, all your experience at the National Medal of Honor Museum. And I know you want to give back probably for the rest of your life. What can you take from those experiences in your combat deployments? You know what we're doing with the American Warrior Association. Appreciate your time on the board, the way you helped lead when you were there, the way you always come to our Hold On for Heroes, our fundraisers, and support us there. But there's a lot of people, me included, can learn from both of you gentlemen. But we got a lot of viewers here that hear your story and think, wow, this is incredible. Is there any advice you could give to people either who are still doing the job, say in the military or first responders, and to their families as well? I love the fact that you talked about the family and how that job is really harder than the ones who are actually doing the official service, because the family's serving too. And you were talking about control earlier. I think that's one reason it's easier for those who are serving, because you have some amount of control. You don't control the situation, but you have a little control over it. Your family's completely out of control with that. They feel helpless, I think. What kind of encouragement do you have with what you've learned through all of your experiences, what you've learned with your family coming up through all these experiences that you could share to maybe encourage those who are still in it?
Wow. Yeah. Could go lots of different ways with all that. But when you're in different phases of life, you don't oftentimes appreciate what's happening. And I was guilty of that too. My last parachute dive, I didn't know it was going to be my last one. Would I have thought any different about it? I don't know. My last SDV dive, my last spacewalk, I knew was my last spacewalk. But those times, you got to just appreciate what precious moment that is. And so when you're actively doing it and life's crazy and kids in Little League and all the stuff that's going on, it's sometimes so hard to realize that those are precious moments while they're happening. And it's difficult, and I'm not good at it myself, because you're always busy running around and the next thing's coming at you fast. But that's one piece of advice that I would tell my own self if I could go back, and what I would be great to impart to others if I can at all. And that's those moments in time are precious. The people around you are special because they're in your life, and just enjoy that time. And when it gets really hard and hectic, don't take a pause to say, this is really hard and hectic, maybe this is too much or whatever, because it can be. And I always thought, Will, that SEALs, operators, 2 operational cycles was about as much as a family could be asked to do. And we went through the global war on terror, and the families were doing more than 2 operational cycles in a row, and it took its toll, I think. And for me, I did an operational cycle. For those that aren't familiar that are listening, it's in my mind a 2-year chunk of time with a 6-month overseas deployment, and then you come back from that deployment and you start another one with a mostly new group of people. And in my case, at the end of that 4 years, 2 in a row, I was ready for a break, and I know my family was ready for a break. And you do whatever. You go be an instructor, you go be a student again, or some shore duty thing where it's not quite so hectic in the military jargon, anyways. And I felt that 2 cycle was a really nice one, and that break was appreciated. And at the end of that break, you're ready to chomping at the bit to get back at it.
Yeah, so we're talking about families and how important family support is for, to be mission focused, to have the support and love that you need to be ultra successful in what you're doing, whether serving your country at home and abroad, or even in outer space, and especially with the inherent danger that just even training is there, let alone doing the actual work in reality. And you've had that support. And we were talking about the advice or the things that you glean on, and like how important that is to never forget that, never neglect those that are supporting you, the silent servants of our nation, the families that are serving those who are actually doing the hard jobs, and allowing them to have peace of mind to focus on the mission. And you've experienced that yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In both phases of life, the military, doing SEAL missions at NASA, and then kind of watching it from us as a side view at the Medal of Honor Museum, realizing that all of the veterans that we support in all different ways, and you guys the same way. It is all goes back to that support network that allows the individuals to serve in whatever service it is.
Right. You know what? I wonder if it's true for astronauts like it is for the rest of us. One thing I'll say is I'm glad my kids don't know y'all's kids, because, like, say you go to bring your dad to school day, and dad talks about what they do, and some kid says, "Well, my dad's a banker." "Oh, that's cool. My dad does this." Then I'll say, "Well, I'm a police officer," and everybody say, "Oh, all of a sudden I'm cool. I'm my dad's hero." And then you two come rolling up. "Oh, I'm a Navy SEAL. Oh, I'm an astronaut." All of a sudden, I'm not so cool anymore. So you guys are setting a really high bar for the rest of us to try to catch up with. So I know my kids getting to talk to you two, they'd hang on every word you said. Like, "Man, these guys are awesome. I can't believe they've done all the things they do. These guys are heroes." In the Cassidy household, are you treated like some amazing famous astronaut, or are you just dad?
No, only when it gets us someplace fun, tickets to a sporting event, or
right.
or access to some cool vacation or something like that, which happens rarely. But otherwise, I'm just kind of normal guy, dad.
Well, I've talked to some people who've done some amazing things, and people think, "Oh, their families must be just different from everybody else's. There must be some kind of unique dynamic." And they all say the same thing. Say, "We're a family like everybody else."
Like everybody else, yeah.
My kids argue with me that my kids roll their eyes at me. We have a great family. We love each other, but we have the same dynamics everybody else does. Mm-hmm. What I think is really unique about your dynamics, though, for both of you, those deployments, going off to space. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for your families when you're gone for that long, and they don't know what's going on. I can't imagine what it's like for you as an astronaut. I mean, launch or re-entry, or when you're out there actually doing a spacewalk. Those are dangerous times, and bad things have happened before. And for them to be able to support you and stay sane while they're supporting through such dangerous jobs, that's got to be a real toll on them. And I'm sure both of you have done everything you can to return that support to them as well. I think sometimes we want to get the support from them all the time, but we neglect, and I'm sure you two didn't, what we need to do for them. And, obviously with your wife being so successful herself, I think she has a little more insight into what you did when you were at NASA. But what did you see were some of maybe the struggles with your family, either on long deployments or your time at NASA?
Well, I think with deployments and time away from one another, it's a relative thing. If you know you're going on a 3-day business trip, and you just know it's going to be 3 days. If it gets extended by a half a day or a day, that's like percentage-wise, it's a big deal, and it's kind of annoying, and maybe you'd miss dinner that night or whatever. If you're going to be gone for 6 months and you are a half a day late getting home, it's not that big of a deal. It's like kind of falls in the noise. So where I'm going with that is you kind of fall into the expectation of whatever that duration of time is. For example, I forgot which aircraft carrier it is. It's right now on its like 10th or 11th month, and they've been extended a few times, a month here, 2 months there. Wow. I can't even imagine what the leadership of that ship is having to deal with for the entire crew, because it affects their own selves as leaders, but the whole crew. When you're expecting 6 months and then you get extended a month and then 2 more months and now you're approaching a year, that's completely out of like comprehension and normal for what the families are expecting and getting used to. So I guess my rambling is about when you know you're going to be gone for 6 months, you kind of settle into that 6-month routine, and then you get through half of it and you're like, wow, we've done half. We only have half left to go. Oh, we've got 1 month to go. We can do a month standing on our head. 1 week left. We're almost there. And so that helps you get through it. It's the challenging part is when things kind of become unknown and uncertain and you get dripped longer. And that can be really, really hard. Fortunately, all of my deployments, by and large, have ended when they were supposed to, and kind of just settled into that routine of being gone, and next thing you know, time goes by.
Well, it seems like you and your wife did it well, because I believe you got a couple of kiddos who just decided to take a similar route when it comes to service to our nation. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, together we have 5 kids between the 3 of us, and the oldest, she was a submarine officer and in the Navy, and now she's out of the Navy. The youngest is just starting his military career post the Naval Academy. He was enlisted and then Naval Academy, so he's been in the Navy for a number of years, but just starting out his pilot journey in Pensacola.
Nice.
We've got one that's a school teacher here locally in Flower Mound, another one that's also local, works for the Texas Rangers, and the 5th one works in hospitality and is out in Colorado.
Wow.
In between jobs right now, but he's out in Colorado and doing well too. So they're kind of all over the place. Yeah.
Wow.
There is something to be said, though, about taking care of our veterans to a degree. And it's important because I think President George Washington said that the way in which we care for our veterans will determine whether or not the next generation of Americans will want to serve or their willingness to serve is. So, setting the example and doing it right. Although I got to go back to what you said about families supporting the operators or those that are doing the missions all over the place. And I think my sons kept me grounded.
Yeah.
As soon as wherever I came home from, they treated me, they brought me down and anchored me back and humbled me, Honestly, if I was an astronaut, they wouldn't care about any of the spacewalks or any of the good things I did or how cool I was. They would just be giving me smack around the dinner table about wearing a diaper. That's what my sons would have did the whole time. They're just the negative Nancys to ground dad, And the truth is, we probably need a little bit of that.
Yeah.
To be in the present, to come back down to earth per se, and stay, humbled to a degree. Because when you start getting over your skis with your ego or anything like that, you kind of lose the bubble on just the goodness of what you already are. And I also think it's also sometimes hard when you come home to compartmentalize everything and get back into the rhythm of the family and what's important to them and what they're focused on and what their priorities are. And you have to make that switch to a degree, because you can't be checked out when you're only at home for a certain amount of time. You have to somehow figure out a way to snap back in and be there for them and be actively listening and truly care about what they're doing, the games that they're playing or the practice that they're going to. So wherever you are and where you think you are in life, you have to come back down to that level and be present for your people, is how I like to say it. My family always humbled me. It made me feel like a turd that I am, I guess. I don't know how to put it lightly, so I could never have a big head. But it was always interesting to me. And now, my 3 sons are my best friends.
Yeah.
Where we can have a pint of beer together and laugh together as they're going on their journey of a young life. But it's good to hear that all your kids are flourishing and doing good and serving or have served. It's important for the health and well-being of our nation that we continue the tradition of service and unselfish service to others. I do want to talk about Afghanistan again, because that was a huge time. 9/11 happened, and really, you woke up the dogs of war, and we went up and out to get after it for what happened to us. And there's a really good story I think that you have that I think everybody needs to hear, because the one thing I saw overseas was how much Americans love dogs. It's really dogs. I mean, we love animals, but we love dogs. And the way I see it is, I think Americans just have the best hearts. We just do, and that's why we do the most good in the world. I mean, I think overall, we're the most giving. We do the most for everybody. But there is some kind of connection to how we love our pets, and it's mainly dogs. And you got to tell us, everybody, the story about JDAM.
Yeah.
You have to tell that story.
That is a good one. So, again, it's early post 9/11, and we're doing a lot of operations on the Afghan-Pakistan border, and we were set to go into this one cave area, which was supposed to be a one-night mission, in at night, out at when the sun comes up. We ended up staying there for 9 days. It's a whole long story. It was a really interesting mission and interesting time. But in those early part of those 9 days, we were exploring this kind of valley, and we would check it out during the day because the aircraft were only flying at night and they needed targets. And so we would, a little bit atypical for special operations missions to be working in the day, but for a 2-day period, we were out and about in this valley, marking all the spots that needed to get bombed. And we would send those targets back, loaded in the aircraft, and they would come in and bomb them at night. And so in that process, we came across this, village isn't the right word. It was kind of like a couple of mud hooches. One was kind of a main house or dwelling. There was still smoldering wood in there, and boiling hot water and things. And the back where there was animals, the donkeys were gone. The chickens were free range, so they were just running around. And there was this dog on the wood, on a rope leash, puppy, scrawny, barking like crazy, and the bad guys were gone. There was nobody in this little mini compound, and we clear it, make sure it's all safe. And one of the guys just reached down with his little knife and cut the rope, and the dog was free because the dog was barking like crazy and like, shut the dog up. It might have been even our chief that said, shut the dog up, and the guy cut the rope, so the dog was free, and he's running around sniffing everybody's boots. But we're on a mission. We're like doing our job. And the rest of the day, it involved kind of working our way back up to some higher altitude, and the dog just kept following us. And you could tell that the dog was like, I could stay here, which is kind of home, but life isn't going to be so good. Maybe, or I can follow these dudes, and who knows where it'll take me. So the dog followed us all day long. And even to the point where sometimes guys would just pick it up and help it over like a big boulder that he couldn't get up over. And now it's nighttime, and we're up at the top of the mountain, which the aircraft knew was the Blue Forces safe zone to don't drop anything here. But the rest of the valley was going to get lit up all night long, and that's what happened. And so we're sitting there watching, and the dog, which did not have a name at the time, starts going crazy when all these bombs, which are called JDAMs, are going off all around us, and the dog's barking, and we're all laughing at the dog, and so the dog's name became JDAM. So JDAM was with us in the field for the rest of the 9 days, and then it came time to go back to our base in Kandahar, and the helicopters were coming in, and we're all like, well, we can't just leave the dog here. And he likes us, we like him, just like you said. Americans love dogs. So somebody took an MRE box, which is like, this big, and cut some holes in it, stuffed him in there and taped it up with green tape. And there's a little nose poking out of the holes. And the helicopter comes, it's loud, you can't hear. And this guy comes running onto the helicopter. We all sit down. There's a box on the floor. All the guys are sitting here trying to keep a straight face. That the air crewmen are like, we all here? We're like, yeah, we're here. Somebody takes the head count of the dog. And we fly back to Kandahar. Well, the dog stayed with us there for the whole rest of the time, and actually got its vaccinations. There was an Army vet who was deployed too, and got all the paperwork in order, and came back to the United States with us.
Wow,
really, really cool.
Well, it's such a great story because there's so many of them.
Yeah,
but this is in reflection and keeping with just the American fighting man or woman. Like literally these folks who, they're tatted up or chiseled face, muscles everywhere, whatnot. but they got these bleeding hearts, these big barrel-chested, protecting these soft hearts inside. They're like the barrel-chested frogmen, but really they're Skittles. You know, they got this hard outer shell, but they got this sugary soft inside. They see a little puppy, and they saved a puppy, you know, from a war zone, and you know, and then they take him back to America. And I'm sure all of them took part in feeding that dog, giving that dog water, take care of it. They probably all petted it. Some might even cuddled with that dog during that deployment. And I've seen it so many times all over the world. Americans just have this big American heart, and that's why we do so much good. It's just really cool. It's really cool to hear those stories and share it. As simple as it seems, it's really just a mirror image of how Americans are.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up with JDAM these days?
Well, his life came to an end not a couple of years after he got back to America, but he lived a good life.
Yes, he did. Yep. Much better than if he had not come across all of you.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
You know, one of the things that I did want to touch on a little bit before we closed out, I told you before how much you appreciated your involvement with the American Warrior Association. And as much as you had going on with the construction and opening the National Medal of Honor Museum, the fact that you would take some time out of your busy schedule to be involved, to come to our fundraiser, the Hoedown for Heroes, it meant a lot to us to have you there. Whether you like it or not, you're a heavy hitter. Your name matters to a lot of people because a lot of people respect you and your service and what you've accomplished.
Thank you.
What was it about, as you said earlier, there are all kinds of really amazing causes out there who are supporting our veterans, our active duty military, our first responders, their families. What was it about AWA that drew you to our organization?
Well, right away, just an appreciation for your founders being founders of the Medal of Honor Museum, and wanting to show some appreciation for that, and didn't really have any idea about AWA and what you guys did on the first time that we attended the, I always say Harvest Hoedown, but Hoedown for Heroes.
Right.
And then once, and that's the case with a lot of great causes, right? Sometimes you never heard of them, and then you get exposed to them. Like, for example, my wife and I did this thing with Cook Children's Hospital called Experience the Mission, where they allow a handful of people a couple times a year to spend a day in scrubs inside the hospital, and you tour around with several different departments, and you're right there. Like, there was a spinal surgery on a kid the day I was there. We had another friend that was in the room for kids that wasn't such a successful story, and just, not that that's a good thing, but I'm just saying that there's no holding back. You are just whatever the hospital's going on that day, you're there, and we had no idea about the goodness of Cook Children's Hospital until we were there, and so it's experiencing things that enlighten you and kind of make you realize all the great things that are happening in our region, in our state, in our country, and so once we got to the Harvest event there, the Hoedown event for Heroes, just realizing, hey, these guys are doing good stuff, and for a cause that is important to me too. So, just kind of started out as knowing mutual people, and it kind of grew into mutual support.
Absolutely. And I know whenever I first even heard about the organization, I'd never even heard the term moral injury. It was something that apparently was more prominent in the military and medical field, but as far as first responder agencies, we didn't know what that was. But then they started explaining it, how, when you witness, perpetuate, or fail to stop something that goes against your moral code, it clicked. I was like, yeah, okay, absolutely. Moral injury is something, you deal with every day in those kind of professions. And having been in combat zones and seen all the things you've seen and done over the years, I'm sure you understand how moral injury can affect someone that's in that kind of a situation. When you heard about the Warriors of Refuge program, the retreats where we'll take veterans or first responders or even active duty military or their family members up on these beautiful mountain retreats, and there's usually a video they show at the Hoedown. take them up there where they can take a knee, where they can catch their breath. Maybe they have just been on 2 cycles of deployment and they are completely gassed. They got nothing left. But when they can go up there with some brothers who have been through the same thing, where they don't have to explain themselves, where they can just be themselves around other people who get what they're going through and what they're talking about, it's been really transformative for everyone who's been able to attend these retreats. I know that when Will, this is our founder right here, was first on the mountaintop with the brothers and some SEAL team comrades, and all decided, this is actually something that we can heal from. How important have you seen in your time working as someone in the military and as someone working with veterans to see how important that restoration and that healing can be after all the exposure to trauma that people can experience?
Yeah, obviously everybody needs their way to do self-care, and that's what I like about where we are in our nation right now. There's lots of avenues for, specifically we're talking about veterans, kind of first responders, to fit their niche. Some people like fly fishing, for example. Some people like woodworking. I know a guy that teaches people how to fold metal and make knives or metal projects, and there's lots of cool things where people, and that might not be for me or you, or the woods might not be the thing for somebody, or the mountaintop, or maybe it's more religious based. There's support mechanisms and kind of reset opportunities in lots of different ways where we have right now, and that's what I think it's a really cool moment in time where people realize that it's healthy to have those regenerative opportunities, and not everybody wants to climb Kilimanjaro, for example. It might not be rejuvenating for somebody, but not everybody wants to go fly fishing in Montana and be camping for a week. But for some people, that's exactly what they need. And so it's really neat to see that there's so many opportunities in AWAs. One of them, I applaud you guys for doing great stuff.
You remember, like back in the 90s, especially in the SEAL team, you would never ask for help for anything. You definitely wouldn't get in the sick call line. Mm-hmm. You definitely wouldn't show ever a chink in your armor because other team guys will exploit it, right? So you never show weakness. And somehow over time, we've showed that it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable. It's okay to do a preemptive strike, knowing that the job is hard, to make sure that your mind, body, and soul is healthy, to make sure your marriage is strong. That's why we talk about like preservation of the force now, and that's widely talked about, in police departments, in fire stations, not just in the ranks of the military across the board. We got to keep the team together. The family is the cornerstone of the foundation of our nation, and so we got to do more to keep it healthy ahead of it before all of a sudden there's the red flag, because it's almost too late. Like they say in a marriage, marriage therapy always comes like 4 years too late, right? So if we could stay ahead of the game, keep them strong, keep the bonds going, and not to say that some marriages maybe weren't good from the get-go, because I got to tell you, I got some friends who've been married 4 times. I'd be like, Matt, why you keep doing it? He's like, oh, I like being in love. It's like, but you're not changing the dynamic. But it's hard also too when there's certain jobs that maybe this job is so demanding. It's not, and this is a hard thing to really stomach. Maybe that job is not conducive to a healthy marriage and family life, and that's why maybe shortened duration on the deployments, maybe like we talked about, only your 2 to 4 year operational cycles, and then it's mandatory, take a knee, do a short duty, instructor duty for 2 or something years, but going 8 to 10 years straight of operational duty without a rest, not just for the operator, but for the family, you will definitely see that increase of divorces and things like that. And how is that good for our communities, our cities, our states, and the ranks? So I think everything, besides the work we're doing on the ground with our programs, is really bent towards the overall health care and well-being of a nation. And that's really what we're all about. Help each individual, help each marriage, help each family, and just try to do good, but also break down the walls of the stigmatism that prevents people egotistically from getting the help that they need. Get help as early and often as you can. And the bravest word ever repeated is the word help. That means you're not willing to quit yet. and that includes your marriage, that includes your family, that includes your kids. I'm not willing to quit. I need some help. Chief, you give me some time to talk to someone, go to a program, do this, do that, and then you're still in the game. You're still in the game getting after it, whether it's up in space, or down here on Earth, wherever. You're still in the game, and your kids are too. So that's how this all came about, and that's what we're trying to do as best as we can. And more options on the menu is better, always better than just one, for sure. You're right about that, Chris.
Yeah, unless it's Cheesecake Factory, then it's like, oh my God, what the hell do I order?
That's too much. That is true. Now your wife, I want to talk about your better half, because from what I understand, she's done more time than you at NASA.
Oh yeah, she worked like almost twice as long at NASA.
Oh, see, I told you she was his better half, twice as long at NASA. That's
Actually,
pretty
true.
impressive.
That is true, twice as long. Yeah, yeah. So Peggy worked for NASA for her whole adult life and started out in NASA Glenn Research Center in Ohio. Right out of high school, took the civil servant exam and scored well, and had the option. Somebody said, "Hey, the authority person said you could work in downtown Cleveland in a government building with the IRS and others, or you can work at NASA." And she's like, "NASA sounds cool." And so she started that. Little did she know it would be 39 years in a whole host of different things, starting out as in human resources, and then aerospace mechanic for 17 years, and then down to NASA at the Johnson Space Center in public affairs, and got her college degree somewhere in that journey, and aircraft operations, government contracts, international relations with our Russian partner. She saw a lot, and her story is not any different. I mean, it's slightly different because every story is different, but there's so many things you can do at NASA. Everybody always thinks about astronauts, but there's all kinds of opportunities there, and NASA's just one example in our nation. And it's there's so many things that, and Peggy and I talk about this a lot. If she had known when she was a young person about X, sometimes we're driving home from an event or thing that we meet new people and hear an interesting thing. She's like, man, if I'd have known about that when I was young, I could have done this or that. So, but you don't. Life is what it is, and it's the path that you're on. But when you learn about new things and your curiosity, and if you're young enough, you can take action. Even now, I guess we can still take action on something and make a new chart the new path that's slightly different. But she had an awesome time at NASA.
Those conversations at the dinner table are much different than mine, my brother. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, the little cerebral, you got to.
And it actually paid off when I was in space on my last mission. Her working there, she had more insight. She sometimes, because she could log into the computer network and see what my daily schedule was on the space station. Sometimes she knew before I did that I was going to talk to CNN on Wednesday. I'm like, oh, I am? Really? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Wow.
My life was about an hour ahead of time when I was up there.
You never had that Armageddon real world experience where, what's his face is up there and his daughter gets on the mic, Dad, while you're up there, and, you remember that scene?
I do.
It's like, I know I promised you I was going to come home, but plans change. Well, that's a tearjerker movie. Armageddon's another. That was a good one.
Let me ask you this, speaking of stuff like that, whenever I watch cop shows or movies, my wife can't hardly watch them with me because I'm like, no, that wouldn't happen. No, that's stupid. No, nobody does that. When you watch a movie like that, when someone's in outer space, do you catch yourself critiquing them because they get so many things wrong?
A little bit sometimes, but I by and large just enjoy it as a good entertaining movie, unless it's totally goofy, like what was it? The movie Gravity, the opening scene, George Clooney's like zipping around the outside of the space station, talking all casually in his little one-man maneuvering thing. And that was one scene where I did exactly like it. Oh my God, that is so ridiculous. We wouldn't do. You're holding on, or you're clipped in all the time. And one time in history did a person do they called it MMU, Manned Maneuvering Unit, and went off on their own away from structure. But that was with the space shuttle, where if it failed, the space shuttle could go back, maneuver back over and get him.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyway.
How big is it, the latest mission, the Artemis mission? How big is it?
Huge.
Like, huge. Like,
yeah.
For everybody out there, okay, they went around the dark side of the moon. Most people don't even realize, like, as the moon, goes around, we only see one side of it. We don't realize it's not.
It's totally locked, yeah.
Right? It's just we're facing. So
yeah, it's always facing us as we rotate.
You see the one side as we rotate.
Yeah.
So how big is it that mission actually took place, was successful?
Yeah, the biggest thing. Well, there was the test of the rocket, which was the second launch of it, because they had an unmanned one launch a couple years ago. Then there is the capsule had to be tested for life support systems, like all the air systems work, everything you need to keep people alive in that thing for the duration of the mission. Mm-hmm. That hadn't been tested before. But the biggest thing, the most critical aspect of that whole entire mission, in my opinion, was the heat shield. And it had some concern with the heat shield after the first mission. The engineers did a lot of analysis and figured out a way to keep them safer just with a different entry profile. But it worked, and it did they understood it. What the analysis that the engineers did, they completely understood what they were doing and successfully tested the heat shield. So now we can, with confidence, start going aggressively into the plan to get people back to the moon. So, in this mission is kind of the bedrock of all that. If we'd had unexplained occurrences or indications on the heat shield, or worse yet, that they didn't survive the reentry, not only would it be bad from a human side, we lose 4 good friends of mine, but it would set our nation back in terms of deep space exploration, probably a decade.
Wow.
And what would happen in that decade? China would just go flying by us, figuratively and literally, on the way to the moon. And I don't think we're ready to not be the number one spacefaring nation in the world. We don't want that to happen. Right. So this was a critical mission to keep us on that path.
And the next mission will go even farther, correct?
They just adjusted it slightly. So the very next mission is not going to go to the moon. They're going to use it as a testing mission around the orbit of Earth to test all the docking systems, which are critical because to get the lunar lander down onto and test out the lunar lander and all the things required for that. And then the fourth Artemis, this was Artemis 2 that just happened. Artemis 3, what I just described, low Earth orbit test. Artemis 4 will be putting people on the moon.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That technology. And a lot of it to build up to putting a potential base up there on the moon, and then potential further out into Mars.
Mars eventually, but I think those astronauts are in like elementary school right now, so we're a ways away from the Mars stuff happening. For the moon, we need to also build a walkable suit, right? The spacesuit that I wore on the spacewalks on the International Space Station, you can't walk in it. The knees don't really bend. Very, very top heavy, a lot of mass up by your head. So if you fell over, quite not to joke, you couldn't get up really. And you certainly can't bend down and dig a hole and grab rock samples or lay pipe to plumb your future moon base. No way could you do any of that in the current spacesuit. So they're about the subsequent missions will be fine-tuning that spacesuit that you can actually do construction work in.
But before they go to live tissue, I'm surely they're considering using robots infused with artificial intelligence for those type initial pushes, so there's not like a loss of life or something. Yeah,
certainly robot integration to all of this is a critical part of the plan, and doing as much as it can. Mm-hmm. To your point, like you can get a lot done and have a lot built before 4 people show up. Yeah. And that'll be certainly part of the plan, but there's just something doesn't quite grasp humans' attention as a robot doing something, as a person doing something. Yeah. And I'm not poo-pooing the robots. It's absolutely essential to this long-term success on whatever space exploration mission we do, robotics. But you just can't replace that human element.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think the latest mission has just spurred such interest and energy behind, the next phase of expedition into space for the younger generation and whatnot, and we need that. We need that sense of being, able to go out there and conquer new territory to a degree. And that's just fascinating, but it expands humanity. And I agree with like Elon Musk, like the Earth is like our one shot right now. Like if we have a comet collision, it could be it for everybody, just like the dinosaurs. So, we have to make movement if possible and figure out how to create redundancy so there isn't, a planet, huge one planet catastrophe for everybody, which could happen. You look at the moon. How is it that the moon has so many meteor strikes with all the divots and dents and canyons and hits?
Well, Earth is getting hit all the time too, but our atmosphere keeps us safe.
It's amazing.
They hit, they bounce off, and every now and then there's some that go burning through. That's why they look for meteorites in Antarctica, because the vastness of the white ice shield, you can find the meteorites better.
Oh.
The contrast, and there's technical devices that can help find them. But there's little bitty meteorites that made it through our atmosphere that are sitting in the Arizona desert somewhere, but it's hard to find them.
Yeah.
So anyways, we get hit all the time. We get hit just as much as the moon. It's in our backyard, the moon is.
Yeah.
So it's not like particles prefer to hit the moon more than it wants to hit us. We just have an atmosphere.
We're so fortunate.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt.
That close.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, before we close out, you got any parting words for our nation's heroes out there, for those that are serving in whatever capacity, or those that are supporting the ones that are serving?
No special words, and nothing that folks haven't heard already, but just by virtue of raising your hand to say, I will, and I will support and defend, or I will do the job I'm about to do, you're doing it for others, and you're serving others, and you're serving the country, and that is really commendable. I think that's sometimes lost on people these days. So the folks that do stand up and say, I will serve, and the support team around those people deserve a lot of credit, and they should know that there's a lot of organizations out there that are there for them and here for them to, when you need support yourself, when you need to be served yourself, there exists paths for that, and there's always help.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate your time so much. We've had some really interesting guests on this show, but I got to tell you, your resume is absolutely phenomenal. All the things you've done, all that you've accomplished, and I have no doubt you're not done. I don't know what your next chapter will be. I hope maybe we can catch up with you down the road and find out what you're doing next. I know you're doing some speaking right now. You were speaking recently with Fort Worth Mayor Maddie Parker at an event she had for some students here in Fort Worth. So I know you're still staying engaged. I know you're still making a difference. I know between you and your amazing family that you have, the Cassidys aren't through making a difference in this world. And it's been an absolute honor to have you on our show today. Thanks for sharing so much with us.
My pleasure, Chief. Thanks, Will. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, and we usually close out in prayer. So if you don't mind, Chris, we're going to close out real quick. Lord, I want to say thank you for all those that do raise their hands, the ones that step up to serve, the ones that are willing to put others above themselves, the ones that have the humble servant heart that they need to make a difference in the world. The ones where, like we read in the Bible, when it says, who shall we send and who will go for us, are the ones that stand up and say, here am I, send me. Lord, I thank you for Chris, for his family, for all the amazing things that they've been able to do. Thank you for blessing them. I pray for continued success and safety and blessings on the family. Thank you for all of those who serve in whatever capacity. Thank you for all the families and loved ones that support them as they do, because they do serve as well. We pray for blessings on our nation. Pray for blessings on this state. And we thank you so much for the gift of forgiveness through your Son, Jesus Christ. And it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.